Hello and welcome back. Today's presentation is television shows for my History of Communication course. So before we begin, here's a list of the 5 shows I will be presenting today. The list starts with Supernatural, Friends, Gilmore Girls, Outer Banks, and lastly, Grey's Anatomy. Watching your favorite TV show or film has come a long way from going to the red box at Walmart and waiting for it to come on TV during the day. Now we have streaming services that provide almost any form of entertainment by a push of a button and paying a monthly subscription, like on Hulu or Disney Plus. In March of 2020, when the pandemic reached its peak, streaming services increased since no one was actually going to the theaters anymore, especially during quarantine. These 5 shows presented are my top 5 that I binged for the first time and for the 100th these past 2 years since the pandemic began. First on the list is Supernatural, with 15 seasons. 2 brothers follow their father's footsteps as hunters, fighting evil supernatural beings of many kinds, including monsters, demons, and gods that roam the earth. So, a little backstory with Supernatural. I first found this show in middle school and was completely in love. I was a big Supernatural geek, and I this was like my longest like fangirl phase of my preteen years. I finished the finished the show my sophomore year of high school, maybe my sophomore or junior year, and that was kind of when the phase ended. So from age 12 to 18, it's kind of a long, long time. And for Christmas one year, I received only supernatural merchandise. And in the show, there's a specific tattoo, or it's a symbol, I guess, that's represented in the show. And I really wanted it when I got older. I can currently say I do not have this tattoo. I have a koi fish tattoo, and it has nothing related to this show. But what drew me to Supernatural was the plot and how the main characters, Sam and Dean Winchester, seek out angels, and a large portion of the show is a battle between heaven and hell. That kind of became like the big theme of the whole show. And besides the action, the humor, and the good feely moments, like little quirks of the characters, for example, Dean Winchester, his car, he's obsessed with his car, and pie. And then his brother Sam has a nickname. He's called Moose for being super freaking tall. Um, and then it's just one of those shows that it's just something more than just something that was on CBS or Netflix. It brought people like me who's interested in the supernatural to joy in the world that we live in today. Next is Friends with 10 seasons. The personal and professional lives of 6 20 to 30 something year old friends living in Manhattan. So I did not realize how many of my friends and family were almost obsessed with this show until I watched all 10 seasons the summer before my junior year. And I loved the consistent humor of the sitcom, and the show itself has inspired people to work hard for what you want. An example of this is the character Rachel Green. So the show actually starts with Rachel Green leaving her fiance at the altar, and she starts over. She has no job, no money, she has nothing. And by the end of season 10, she has a beautiful daughter, and she ends up with the man who has been in love with her for almost 20 years. Yeah, it's an amazing show. Third is Gilmore Girls with 7 seasons. A dramedy centering around the relationship between a 30 something single mother and her teen daughter living in Stars Hollow, Connecticut. So, Gilmore Girls became one of those shows I binge watched during quarantine. I didn't really know if it was something that I would enjoy, but something that I ended up loving probably the most was the simplicity of the show and how the main characters, Lorelai and her daughter Rory, go through realistic challenges of life. And, we all love those, action packed, sci fi movies that are like just thrilling. But it's always nice to have that show that's just, steady and there's nothing too crazy. There's no like plot twist every 5 episodes. It's just realistic life. And a couple of those challenges that Lorelai and Rory go through are, Lorelai was a teen mom, Rory, her daughter's coming of age. Lorelai comes from a snobby rich family, and Rory moves off to college and deals with her own adult things. And although I will admit I have not quite finished this show since 2020, I think I'm in like season 3 or 4. I think back to Lorelai and her coffee addiction, which is another little character quirk for both main characters, when I go back for my second cup of the day. Fourth on the list is Outer Banks, with 2 seasons available on Netflix, with one more on the way. A group of teenagers from the wrong side of the tracks stumble upon a treasure map that unearths a long buried secret. At the peak of quarantine, the release of Outer Banks took the internet by storm and rapidly grew on TikTok for the lovable cast, exciting plot, and the pretty cool, beachy fashion. I remember when my mom and my brothers, we watched this and we ended up going to the beach almost every day afterward just that we could relate to Outer Banks a little bit. And a little, fun fact is that Outer Banks was filmed in Charleston, South Carolina, which was my hometown, and many scenes were taking place near my old high school, which is Bishop England, and that's on Daniel Island. Especially in season 2, it was filmed right in my hometown. It was pretty cool to see it on TV. That's something that I grew up around for almost 10 years. And with season 3 on the way, I cannot wait for more mysteries to be discovered, which is something that I feel like Outer Banks is really known for, is the mystery and just the lovable, fun characters and cast. Last but not least is Grey's Anatomy, with 18 seasons, with another season planned for production. A drama centered on the personal and professional lives of 5 surgical interns and their supervisors. So when I was younger, growing up, my mom loved watching Grey's. I mean, as I was obsessed with Supernatural, she was obsessed with Grey's. And for the last 18 years, she would watch the show and fangirl over Dr. McDreamy or cry when her favorite character died. And when I became old enough to sit down and watch almost all 20 seasons on my own, it was nice to be able to talk to my mom about the show, and I was able to connect with her more. I mean, and then I love this show for the growth of the characters, especially Meredith Grey. And I learned something new in the medical field with each episode, since the cases are so realistic. The carousel never stops turning. Meredith Grey. I chose this quote from Grey's Anatomy because it simply relates to that the world only moves forward, and what is behind you is what makes you who you are sometimes. And another fun fact is I chose this quote as my senior quote during graduation. So here I have actually ranked all of the shows from personal favorite to maybe least favorite. So the very top we have Grey's Anatomy. It is one of my favorites. And then we have Outer Banks, Friends, Supernatural, and Gilmore Girls. Gilmore Girls is at the very bottom because I still not have finished the show. Since the pandemic, there have been more entertainment released on streaming platforms. And although these new shows are fun to watch, these 5 shows have become close to my heart and inspire a lot my personality or why I do something a certain way. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye, y'all.